to another green marble granny square sundae. So for this granny square sundae, we're going to be making this sunflower granny square. So it's a little thing that I came up with over the past couple of days, and I'm really happy with it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. So we're going to be doing this, and I think we need to practice it a little bit because it's not the easiest pattern I've ever come up with, but it's worth making, and I've sort of got some plans for it on Wednesday. So the top that we're going to be making on Wednesday, I think we're going to make with these. So we're making this. Now for this one, instead of the dark blue edging for the square outside the circle, I'm going to be using purple instead because I think it's going to look really nice. So, I don't think there's much. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm using a 3.5mm hook because that's what the label suggests. So I'm using that. So all of the colors except for the green, so this one here, the light green, is this. It's all this brand. So just pause the video if you need more time to have a look at anything. Pause the video, and here are the tiny relevant details. So here it's saying I should use a 3 or a 3.5, so that's good. I'm using my 3.5. Alright, I just want to mention quickly that also, if at any point during the tutorial you feel like I'm going too fast, there's a feature on YouTube where you can slow down the speed of the video. So I really suggest doing that, just so that you're able to keep up at your own pace. It's a really great thing you can do. So just do that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to get started, and we're starting with the brown. So we'll move everything else aside. We'll get our brown yarn. And we're going to start by finding the end of that yarn. Find the end. Find the end. We're going to start by making a slip knot. So to make a slip knot, we take the end between the thumb and the index finger of our right hand. So like this. Like this. Then with the index finger and the middle finger of the left hand, we wind the other end of the yarn around our fingers like this. Take hold, pull through the loop. So I usually make the tail end actually a little bit shorter than that because I like to crochet it in as I go along. So just like that. Just like that. And then picking up our hook, we're going to adjust that knot to the hook. So we insert your hook like that, pull tight. Pull the working end and it will pull the loop tight. Alright, so what we're going to do from here is we're going to make a chain of 4. So to do a chain stitch, it's yarn over, pull through the loop, so that's 1 chain, yarn over, pull through the loop, that's 2 chains. I am losing my voice. Alright, so yarn over, pull through the loop, 3 chains, yarn over, pull through, so there's 4 chains. So now that we've got our chain of 4, what we're going to do is we're going to count 4 back, so 1, 2, 3, and into that first chain right at the beginning, we're going to slip stitch. So into that top part of the chain, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through a loop, then pull that loop through the last loop on your hook. And now you've made a small chain circle. And what we're going to do now is we're going to chain up 1. Now, for this round and every round, the chain of 1 is going to act as a stitch. And you'll see why when we get to the, I think when we get to the orange, no, when we get to making the petals. Anyway, we'll get to it. So we've chained up 1, and what you're going to do is you pull apart the circle like this, and you can see there's that middle bit, which is right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to put 11 half double crochets into the center of the chain circle just there, and this chain of 1 is the 12th stitch. So for a half double crochet, it's yarn over, pulling apart that chain circle just there, and inserting your hook into the center of the chain circle like that, then yarn over, pull through a loop, then yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, and that's a half double crochet. So that's 1, then we'll do another one, so that's 2, another into the center just there, and that is 3. So we'll go away, we'll do 11, and we'll meet back up and we'll talk about what we're doing next. Alright, now here I am with all 11 of those half double crochets into the center of that chain circle, and that's what that's going to look like. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find that stitch at the top of the chain of 1 from the beginning, so that's that stitch just there. We're going to go in beneath both parts of that V of that stitch, so you see there's the sort of V shape of the stitch. You go in beneath that to slip stitch and close the round. So that's what that looks like. Now moving on to round 2, what we're going to do is we're going to chain up 1, we're going to turn the work. Now because this is acting as the first stitch, I usually do something slightly different for granny squares and just things in general. But for this one, to keep the pattern so that this stitch is counted at the beginning, what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over, counting this one as 1, you're going to put a stitch right into the stitch beneath that chain of 1, so that one just there, and that's going to be stitch number 2. But we're assuming that that chain of 1 is already in that space. So then moving on to the next stitch, you're just going to put 1 half double crochet, sorry, the half double crochets again. So 1 half double crochet, so that's stitch 3. Now into the next stitch along, you're going to put 2 half double crochets. So 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Then moving on to the next stitch along, you're going to put 1 half double crochet. So 1. So the pattern goes 2, 1, 2, 1. So next stitch will be 2 into the same stitch. So 1 and 2. Then into the next stitch there will be 1. So by the end of this round, including the chain of 1, you're going to have a stitch count of 18. So I'll meet you at the end of the round and we'll talk about what we're doing next. Alright, now, okay, so I'm on my 18th stitch just here. And you'll notice that the last stitch is that connecting stitch just there before you chained up 1. So you're going to put your last stitch, that 18th stitch, just into that stitch, and there is your round. Now once again you're going to slip stitch to close the round, but the chain of 1, the stitch at the top of that is going to look a little different because you had to twist it around when you turned. So it's going to be that one there, and the stitch is kind of facing you. You can kind of see it like that. So you're going to insert your hook beneath both parts of the V of that stitch, yarn over, pull through a loop, pull that loop through that last stitch to close the round. And that's round 2. Alright, so moving on to round 3, we're going to chain up 1 and turn. Once again, counting this as the first stitch, and you're going to put your second stitch into that stitch right beneath that chain, so right next to the chain. That's going to be 2. So every first stitch of every round, except for the last one when we put in the square, is going to be 2 stitches, so including the chain of 1. So that's 1, 2. Then moving on to the next stitch is 1 half double crochet. Then moving on to the next stitch is 1 half double crochet. So the pattern or the repetition for this round is 2, 1, 1. Then it will be 2 into the next stitch, so 1 and 2, and then 1 into the next stitch, and then 1 into the next stitch after that. So if you want, you can count. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that helps me. If that helps you, that's good. So yeah, it's going to be that till the end of the round. 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. When you get to the end of this round, you will have a stitch count of 24. So we'll meet back up at that point and we'll talk about the next round. Alright, here we are at the end of the round, and once again putting our final stitch into that connecting stitch just there. So half double crochet, and again we find that chain of 1 from the beginning, so it's twisted around to face us. We stick our hook through that, yarn over, pull through a loop, pull through that last stitch to close the round. Alright, now we're going to move on to round 2, 3, 4. Round 4, we're going to chain up 1. We're going to turn, and this is going to be the last round of the brown before I move on to the orange. So also you can use any colors you want if you want to make a crazy psychedelic alien space sunflower. That would be great. I'm thinking of making some myself, so yeah, I'm gonna be doing that. I'll probably post pictures at some point. Anyway, moving on. So I've chained up 1, and this is the last round of this. So what we're doing is counting that chain of 1 as the first stitch. Right beneath that chain of 1 is that stitch just there. We're going to put stitch number 2, half double crochet into that stitch. Then we've got 1 into the next stitch, 1 half double crochet, 1 into the stitch after that, and then 1 into the following stitch. So it goes 2, 1, 1, 1. So there's 5 stitches for each repetition. So you can count to 5. You can do 1, 2 into the first stitch, then 3, 4, 5. And that's what I do to, you know, keep me on track. So I do 1, 2 like this, then I do 3, 4, 5. And I guess the way you'll know which stitch to put 2 into is because it's every first stitch of each repetition. So by the end of this round, you'll have a stitch count of 30. I'll meet back up with you at that point, and we'll talk about moving on to round 5. Is it round 5? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. All right, meet you at the end of this round, which is round 4. All right, here we are at the end of round 4, and once again, we're going to slip stitch to that stitch at the top of the chain of 1, close the round. Try and do it as neatly as we can. Then what we're going to do from there, so now we've slip stitched to closed, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to find our scissors, and we're going to cut the yarn. We're trimming off that yarn. Alright, I've chained 1, I've cut the yarn. Now all I'm going to do is pull that chain through. Pull that chain through, pull tight to secure it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the work around. We're going to stick our hook into that first stitch where we're going to stick our hook into that first stitch where we would normally be putting our first stitch. So just through there. I normally like to weave these in as I go along, but for now I'm not going to do that, just so you can see what I'm doing better. And by weave in, I mean crochet in. So yes, we're moving on to the orange. So putting this down for the moment, we're going to find our orange yarn. I'm going to grab a length of that that's good. Then I'm going to find the end of that yarn, and we're going to make a slip knot. So making a slip knot, like I said, a little bit shorter. Okay, it's short enough. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust that knot to our hook that's already through that stitch. I'm going to pull it tight. Then you're going to pull that slip knot through that stitch, and you're going to chain up 1, and that's going to be acting as your first stitch. Alright, so not weaving those in as I go along. So what we're going to do is yarn over and going into the first stitch. That's going to be stitch number 2. So 2, and for this one it's each repetition with the first stitch. That was really messy. So each repetition for this round, because the last one was repetitions of 5, this one's going to be repetitions of 6. So 2 stitches going into every first stitch, if you know what I mean. So 1, 2, and then counting along. Next one will be 3. Then the next one will be 4, then next one 5, and the next one along will be 6. So that's the repetitions we're going to be doing for this one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll meet you at the end of this round. What have we got? We've got 30, so there should be 36 stitches at the end of this round. So we'll meet back up at that point and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alright, here I am at my last stitch. Sorry, I have a sip of water. Probably should have done that before. Anyway, so on to my last stitch. So the 6th of that last repetition. Now we're going to slip stitch into the stitch at the top, well, stitch at the top of that chain of 1 from the beginning. So that's not going to look like the other ones. It's just going to be that stitch at the top of the chain of 1, not twisted around this time. So you're going to slip stitch to that, close the round, and now you've got 36 stitches. Now what you're going to do is make sure you've got more yarn there. and you're going to chain up 1. This reminds me of, these colors reminds me of Reese's Pieces. That's what this looks like. I was wondering what it was. Anyway, now I'm hungry. So you've chained up 1, you've turned, and this is obviously the first stitch. Then into the stitch just beneath that chain of 1, you're going to put a stitch, half double crochet, which will be stitch 2. So this one's going to be repetitions of 7, so it's just going up by a stitch for each round. The next round is going to be a bit more complicated, and by a bit more complicated I mean I'm really going to have to talk you through it because yes, you'll see what I mean when we get there. Alright, so you've done 2 stitches, then you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've got 2 into the first stitch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single stitches along, 2 into the next, and so on, till you get to the end of this round. So we've got 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So we're at 42 at the end of this round. So I'll meet you at the end of this round, and we'll move on to the next round. Okay, see you at that point. Alright, here we are at the end of round 6. Like I said, there should be a stitch count of 42. Did I say that? Yes, I did, and I meant it. Alright, so did I go? No, I haven't gone into the last one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last stitch just there, which is 7. Alright, so we're slip stitching into that chain of 1 from the beginning, just there, like that. And pull through. Now what you're going to do at this point, we are going to be attaching the yellow yarn to the orange yarn. So to do that, I'm going to chain up 1, and we're going to actually from here just chain up 1, put your work down facing the way that it's facing, so just like this. I'm going to tilt the camera down a little so that I can give you a better look at what's going on. So we go here, yes. Now grabbing the yellow yarn, you're going to find the end of that. Hopefully I can. I'm going to try and explain this as best I can without sounding like a complete idiot. It is slightly complicated, honestly, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little stubborn sometimes, so I decided that this is the way it has to be. Anyway, finding this, you're not going to make a slip knot. What you're going to do is you're going to find the yarn that you're working with, so that's just here, that's still attached, and you're going to tie it in a knot to that yarn. So tying it just there like this, and kind of go like this. I hope you can see what I'm doing. You're just really attaching it, you know? So just like that, getting as close to the stitch as possible. So you've already chained up 1, so there we go, we've attached it. Now I can... Oh, alright, well my phone decided to run out of battery, so here we are. Now, what we're going to do is, we've attached our yellow yarn, and so I need to explain what we're doing. I've already chained up 1. Let's just put this aside for the moment. So take your hook out, making sure you don't lose that loop. Turn the work around. Now what we're doing is, we're going to be working with posts from stitches from round 3. So you've got round 1, 2, and this round just here, which has got 24 stitches. So for the round that we're on, it's got, because the last round was repetitions of 7, so now for this round you've got repetitions of 8, with 2 stitches going into every first stitch. But while you're doing that, you're going to be doing something a little bit different with the second stitch of every 6 stitches. That's going to correspond with the stitches, the posts of the stitches from round 3. So I'm going to explain this to you to begin with. So you've got, where are we? So this is round 3, just here. Let's try and get a bit closer. Alright, so this is round 3 just here, and you've got your chain of 1, which is right there. You're going to be working around the post of that. So you're going to go in beside that, out through the back. Pushing in, out through the back like that. Hopefully my camera will focus. Maybe it won't. There we go. Alright, so you're going to be doing that. And obviously moving on to the next stitch, you'll be going around the post of that. So there's the bulk of the stitch, which is right there, but you're working around the post, which is above that, that connects to the stitch in the higher round. So you're working around that post just there. So that's for that stitch right there. So we've chained up one, we've turned. I'm going to talk you through this. So if you really think about it, you'll make it to the end in one piece. It took me a while to get used to it, but it's basic maths, but more than one basic maths to deal with at once. So we've chained up one, we've turned, and we're going to be shoving aside that sort of scraggly loose end to begin with. Now that chain of one is our first stitch, and you're going to be working into that stitch which would be right beneath it just there. So like I said, the second of every 6 is going to be something different. So this is also the first repetition of 8. So you've got 1, then you've got this one, which will be 2. But what we're doing is we're yarning over with that yellow yarn. You're going to move down to round, where are we? Where's the chain of 1 from that round? Sorry about that incredibly loud car outside. So there's that chain of 1. I think that's the one. Yeah. So you're going to be yarning over with the yellow. You're going to move down to round 3, and you're going around the post of that chain of 1. Is that the chain? No, that's the chain of 1. Let's go around the post of that first stitch just there. So you're working around. Hang on. No. Yes. Let's go around that post just there. You're going to yarn over with the yellow. You're going to pull up a loop, and you're going to be pulling that loop up to meet the round that you're on. So stretching it right up like that. Then you're going to yarn over with the yellow again and pull through those 2 stretched loops like this. Then I find it's best if you put your finger on that loop just there, and you're going to yarn over with the yellow again, and also hold on to that yarn over that you've done. Then moving along to the next post, the post of the next stitch. That actually might have been the chain one. Anyway, moving on to, so there's the next stitch. Around the post above that, you're going to hook your stitch in around behind that, yarn over with the yellow, pull up a loop, then stretch that up to meet the round that you're on, yarn over, and you're going to pull through those 2 stretched loops. So now you should have 3 loops on the hook, including that orange one from the beginning. Once again, you're going to yarn over. You're going to go around the post, top post of the next stitch along. So there's that stitch. You're going to go in through the post above it, yarn over, pull a loop up to meet the round that you're on, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of the loops that you've got on your hook there. So there's number 1 petal. So also what we're going to do, so that's stitch 1 and 2, including the chain, including this bulky thing, it represents stitch 1 and 2. So that's the first 2 of the repetition of 8. So what you're going to do now is you're going to picking up this orange, making sure you're picking up the working end. So picking up that orange, you're going to twist it up and make sure you're hooking it up around. Like, don't bring it over the top of the yellow, because if you just drop the yellow like that, it won't work as well. You've got to sort of twist it underneath that yellow, then yarn over with that orange. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to be putting stitch number 3 in. So that's going to be that stitch just there, because usually you'd be putting stitch 1 and 2 into that first stitch just there, which would be the stitch beneath that chain of 1. You're working into the next stitch along, so that's that one just there. That's going to be stitch number 3. So you've got 3, then you're going to work 4, next stitch is 5, next stitch will be 6, next stitch will be 7. But remember, we're doing the second stitch of every 6. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then this 7th stitch is the first stitch of the next 6. So you've got 1. And stitch number 8, which is the final of the first repetition of 8, is going to be the second stitch of this second repetition of 6. I'm sorry that this is so complicated. Alright, so you're yarning over with the yellow. You're dropping that orange, yarn over with the yellow, so you can drop that orange in front just there. Moving on to the next stitch along on round 3, going into the post above that, yarn over, pull a loop up to meet the round that you're on, so stretch it right up there, yarn over, pull through those 2 stretched loops, then holding on to that stitch, yarn over, hold on to the yarn over, going to the next post along on the next stitch, around the next post, yarn over, pull a loop up to meet the round you're on, yarn over, pull through those 2 stretched loops, then yarn over again, moving on to the next post of the next stitch along on round 3, yarn over, pull a loop up to meet the round you're on, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops. So there's your next petal. So now what you're going to do, making sure you twist the yellow up in with the orange, pull the orange up underneath that, yarn over with the orange. So that was stitch number 8, that bulky one. So what you're also going to have to do is you're skipping the stitch that would normally go into. Okay, so you're skipping that and you're moving on to the next one along, which is going to be the first of the next repetition of 8. So you've got 2 stitches into the same stitch, and it's going to be 1 and 2. Then you've got 3, 4, 5. Now, a really good way that you can tell where you need to put these bulky stitches is there's going to be 5 orange stitches between each one. So you can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 just there. Then there's this one. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then there's going to be another bulky one. And you're going to be skipping that stitch where the bulky one is. So what have you got? You've got 1, 2, while maintaining the repetitions of 8. But I'm still going to go through this with you because this is a really hard round. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you're going to complete this, obviously moving on to the next post. I'm going to let you do that by yourself. We'll meet back up once we finish the next petal. All right, here I am, and I've done my next petal. So now dropping that orange, pulling the dropping that yellow, pulling the orange up underneath that. So this petal here represents the 6th one of this repetition of 8. So now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be skipping the stitch at the back just there. So skipping that stitch just there, which would be the stitch that 6th one would normally have gone into. You're going to yarn over with the orange, go into the next stitch along, yarn over, pull up a loop. So that's going to be 7. Then you've got 8. So now you've done that repetition of 8, so you're going to put 2 into the next stitch, will be the first of the next repetition of 8, so 1, 2, and then you've got 3, but now you've got 5 stitches, so you're going to put in your next petal. And obviously you're working into all the next spokes along. It will work out, I promise. Stick with it. If you mess up, just go back, persevere. It's worth it because it looks really pretty when it's finished. So I really hope this has made sense. If it doesn't make sense for anyone and you find yourself getting super frustrated, write me a message or just leave a comment and I will endeavor to do some written instructions for this one. I'll just put them in the description of the video because, yeah, this one's yeah, it's hard. All right, so what have we got? We've got the petal, so let's do that petal. We'll go away, we'll do the petal, we'll meet back up after we've done that. All right, here we are, and I've done that petal, and that petal represents stitch number 4 in this repetition of 8. So you see we've got 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orange, then this one represents 4, so you've got 1, 2, 3, and this one's 4. Then, bringing up that orange beneath that yellow, you're going to yarn over. You're going to skip the stitch just there. So that one just... Focus better. Focus better. Let's not drop our stuff. Hang on. Alright, yeah, so we're yarning over with the orange. And then we're skipping that stitch, which would be the stitch that 4th one would normally go into. Going into the next stitch along, so that's that one just there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, so that will be 5 and 6, 7, next one along, and 8, just there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we've done a repetition of 8. Now we're going to need to do 2 into the next stitch, but one of those stitches, which is going to be the second one, is going to be the petal. So we're going to do this together. So you're going to be putting that first of the next repetition into this stitch. Then you're going to drop that orange. You're going to pick up the yellow. You're going to do your petal. So do your petal and we'll meet back up. Alright, so I've done that petal and that represents stitch number 2. So now bringing up that orange yarn beneath that yellow, you're going to yarn over. Now, because that petal it would basically have gone into the same stitch as the one before. So you won't be skipping a stitch, you're just moving straight into the next stitch for stitch number 3 of this repetition of 8. Do you see what I mean? You're not skipping a stitch. So that's stitch number 3. 3. Then you've got 4. Moving on to the next one is going to be 5, 6. How many have we got there? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is 7, and then the next one, which will be the 8th of this repetition of 8, is going to be the petal. So we'll complete the petal and we'll meet back up. Alright, here is that petal. So once again we're going to, and that represents the 8th of that repetition of 8. So you're picking up the orange beneath that yellow. You're going to yarn over with the orange. You're going to be skipping that stitch which would represent the 8th stitch that you would have gone into. You're going to go into the next one along with 2 stitches into the same stitch. So that's that first of the next 8. Then 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be easy. So this one will be 5. So for the next one along, which is the 6th in this repetition of 8, you're going to yarn over with the yellow. You're going to finish your petal. Alright, now here is that petal. So we're going to, dropping the yellow, you're going to pick the orange up underneath it like this. You're going to yarn over with that, and you're going to skip that next stitch along, which would represent the 6th in this repetition of 8. You're going to move on to the next one. So that one's going to be 7, sort of making sure to pull that so that it's tight. 7, and then 8. So now the next stitch along is going to be the first of the next repetition. So there's 2 stitches into the same stitch. So 1 and 2. Then you've got 3. So how many have we got here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the next one, the 4th in this repetition of 8, which is the last one to the end of the round, we're almost at the end, is going to be the next petal. So let's do this next petal together. So you should have 3 spokes or 3 posts left to go around. So you're yarning over with that yellow. You've yarned over. Moving down to round number 3. So moving down to round number 3, here's that last, well, third last stitch. You're going around the top post of that stitch, pulling up a loop up to meet the round that you're on. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through 2 yellow loops of those stretched loops, yarn over with the yellow, go around the post of the next stitch along, so into that one just there, yarn over, pull that loop up to where you are, pull those loops up to where you are, yarn over, pull through those 2 stretched loops, yarn over, and the final post just there, you're going to go into that, you're going to yarn over, pull up that loop to where you are, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops. Then dropping the yellow, picking the orange up underneath like that, yarning over with the orange. You're skipping that stitch just there, which would have been the represented 4 in this repetition of 8. You're going to go into the next one along, which is 5. Then you're going to just complete this repetition, which is 6, 7, and last one just there, 8. We did it. Actually, yeah, first time too. Wow, I'm proud of myself. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to slip stitch to close the round, but you're going to slip stitch with both strands, the orange and the yellow, and you're going to look for the stitch that would be that chain of 1 from the beginning, and it's going to be that orange stitch just there before the yellow stitch. So you're just going to go into that. It may look a little tight, but it's not. You're going to yarn over, pull through those 2 strands, pull those 2 strands through that last stitch. Then you're going to chain 1 with those 2 strands, chain 1, find your scissors and cut the yarn. So at this point, I'm just going to explain to you quickly why we were using the chain of 1 as a stitch. Is because if you had an extra stitch and just discounted the chain of 1, there would be a gap between the first stitch or the first petal and the last petal of the round. This way it looks neater, like there's no gaps between the petals, except for those lovely brown bits coming up just on the side, just there. But you can see it sort of looks it's a bit more, it's just a bit neater. So anyway, we've done that, and that's great. Now, I promise the rest is so ridiculously easy. It's amazing. All right, so we've turned the work and we're working from the wrong side again. And you're going to go into the stitch that you would normally go into or be working into if you chained up 1. So that stitch where the chain of 1 would be. So just into there. Let's put this down for a second. All right, so now we're moving on to the green. So I realized that I didn't show you the label for the green one in the beginning. Just showed you the one for the other ones. So this is what we're working with for the green, just so you can see it. Yeah, it's basically the same sort of yarn, same ply, you know. So where are the tiny relevant details? I guess that's them. This is the tiny relevant details. So yeah, I was saying I should use a 4 or a 5 millimeter hook. I disagree. It's much too fine. It's definitely more of a, what do you call it? A DK. Anyway, moving on. We're going to be using the green and finding the end of the green yarn. Yes, and here is the end. I really hope you can't hear those really loud cars outside. Someone's like drag racing on the street just outside where I live, and it's annoying. Anyway, so we've got the green, and we're going to make a slip knot. So many noises. Anyway, picking up the work, we're going to adjust that knot to the hook. Going to adjust it, pull tight. Now, you want to make sure that loose end is pulled through that stitch because you're pulling it through to the messy side. So that's the messy side. Just pull that through. Pull that loose end through. Then you've got your slip knot there just like that. You're going to chain up 1 straight from that knot, and that's going to be your first stitch. So we're still counting that chain of 1 as the first stitch. So in beside that, you're just going to put your first stitch. So that's going to be 2. And then, okay, so for this round, because the last round was repetitions of 8, this one's going to be of 9. So you've got 2 into the first stitch, then the next stitch along will be 3. Then the next stitch, sorry, I'm working these ends in as I go. Next stitch along will be 4. Then you've got next stitch, which is 5. Then sort of pushing this aside, you've got this stitch, which is 6. So that's that yellow one. Then you've got 7, 8, and 9. So that's that first repetition of 9, then obviously just into the next stitch, you've got your first of the next 9, so it's going to be 2 into the same stitch, so 1 and 2. Oh, so you're going to do that. By the end of this round, you are going to have hang on a second. Oh, alright, yes, I was right. So, by the end of this round, you're going to have a stitch count of 54. So all your repetitions of 9, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. We'll talk about the next round. Alright, here I am at the end. Now I'm going into that last stitch just there. So that connecting one just there may look a little tight. So it is a little bit tight, but just stick it. Actually, it's not that tight at all. Just go into that stitch, yarn over, pull up that loop, but just make sure you're getting that last stitch right at the end. So now you're going to slip stitch into the top of, well, that stitch above the chain 1 from the beginning. Close the round, chain up 1, grab your scissors. I'm going to cut the yarn. just like that. Now we're moving on to this lovely tropical blue, sort of light blue. I love this color. It's so happy. Alright, so you're going to make a slip knot with that. Making a slip knot. Now, so we tied off just like this. You're turning the work and sticking your hook through the stitch that would normally be beneath the chain of 1. So going into that one there. Adjust your knot to the hook. Pull through. Pull that knot tight. And chain up 1. So this one is going to be repetitions of 10. With 2 going into every first stitch. So 1, chain of 1 is 1, and then 2 next to that chain of 1. Then you've got, yeah, just working to the count of 10 along. So 3, 4, 5, 6, let's push those ends out of the way. Then 7, 8, 9, and 10. So then you've got 2 into the next stitch, and so on till the end of the round. So at the end of this round, you will have a stitch count of 60. And once you've done that, we're going to meet back up, and we're going to put in the square, and then we're going to be finished. I think that looks so pretty. I love sunflowers. That's gorgeous. All right, see you soon. Okay, here we are at the end, and we're just going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 1 from the beginning, that stitch above it, close the round, chain 1, grab your scissors, cut the yarn. Alright, so we're going to put in the square. Now to do the square, we're going to be working with half double crochets, and triple crochets. And we're also not turning the work because we want the front of the stitches to be facing the good side. So you're still going to be working into the stitch that would be right beneath where that chain of 1 is. So you can see just there, you've cut the yarn, you've tied off, don't turn the work. So you've got your first stitch just there. So you're going to insert your hook into that stitch, put that down for a second. You're going to grab your purple yarn or whatever lovely colour you're working with. You're going to grab a length of that. You're going to make a slip knot. So making a slip knot. Then you're going to adjust that knot to the hook that's through that stitch. Try to adjust. Pull that slip knot tight and then pull that through the stitch. Pull that through that, it's a little bit tight. That's okay. So you've pulled it through that stitch. Now you're going to chain up 1, and you are still counting this as 1 stitch. So basically what this is, you've got obviously 4 corners for the square. Each corner is 1 stitch, and between each corner there's going to be 14 stitches. So this chain of 1 is in the middle. It's going to be the first of 7. So we're going to divide this one into 7. We're going to put, so this is in the middle of the one of the sides. So this is 1, and then into the next stitch you're going to yarn over, put a half double crochet, so that's going to be 2, and this chain of 1 represents a half double crochet. So 1, 2, then a half double crochet into the next stitch, 3, then another half double crochet into the next stitch, that's going to be 4. Now into the next stitch along, which is going to be 5, you're going to put a double crochet, so it's yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a double crochet, and that's number 5. Then you're going to yarn over, you're going to double crochet into the next stitch, stitch number 6. So another double crochet. Now into stitch number 7, because this circle is quite large, normally you don't have to use triple crochets, but because this one's so large, we're going to go into stitch number 7. You're going to yarn over once, so you've yarned over once, yarn over twice, insert your hook into the stitch, stitch number 7, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and that's a triple crochet. So now we're going to be working in a corner. So to do that, we're going to do 3 triple crochets into that next stitch just there. So let's do that together. So yarn over once, twice. So your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So that's 1. We'll do another one into that stitch and another one. One second, another one, sorry. So there should be 3 so far, including the one I'm doing now. So there's 3 triple crochets in that stitch. Now you're going to chain 1, and put another 3 triple crochets into that same stitch. So there's going to be 6 triple crochets into the same stitch with a chain of 1 in the middle. 3 on either side of that chain. So another one just in there like that. So now moving on to the next side, and this is going to be a complete side of 14. So what you're going to do is you're going to put a triple crochet into the next stitch. So basically it's mirroring what you did just here at the beginning. So triple crochet into that next stitch just there. So 1, 2, 3. So there's a triple crochet, that's 1. Then a double crochet into the next stitch. So 1 double crochet. Then 1 double crochet into the next stitch along, so that's 3. Then you're going to be putting a half double crochet into the next 4 stitches. So that's going to complete the 7 of the first 7 of this 14 along. It helps to just count in 7s between each, part. So you've got half double crochet into the next stitch, which is stitch number 4. So 1. Then you've got another one. We'll just call that 4. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there's your first 7 of this side. Then you're going to start again, and you're going to do what you did just here. So you're going to put in, not including that chain of 1, but you're going to put in 4 half double crochets. So 4 along, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you've got 2 double crochets, so 1 double crochet into the next stitch, 1, and then another double crochet into the stitch after that, so that's 2. Then a triple crochet into that next stitch, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a little bit messy. Let's do that again, if we can. Yarn over, so this is the 14th stitch of this side. So 1, 2, 3. So there you go, you've done the 14 stitches of this side. And now you're just going to put in the next corner. So it's 3 triple crochets into the next stitch, followed by a chain of 1 and another 3 triple crochets into that stitch. And you're going to do that all the way around till you get to the end. So you'll find after the last corner, you'll just have 7 stitches to do. You'll have the triple crochet, 2 double crochets, and 4 half double crochets to finish up. I don't really think we need to stick together for the rest. I think you know what to do. So I'm on the corner just here. Yeah. If there's any complications, let me know. Message me, talk to me. So I'll show you pictures. I'll meet back up with you at the end. We'll close it out together and we'll have a look. We'll compare the colours and we'll see which one we like best. Alright, see you at the end. Alright, here I am putting in my very last stitch. So just like that. Last half double crochet. So now what we're going to do, pushing that blue aside, we're going to slip stitch into the stitch above that chain of 1. So there's that chain of 1 there. Just slip stitching into that stitch above that to close the square. Closing up the square, just like that. Then you're going to chain 1. You're going to find your scissors and you're going to cut the yarn and you're finished. You're all finished and that's good. Alright, so yeah, a little bit of complication, but it was okay. And we've made ourselves a lovely square. I just really love the bright colours. I don't know, like the purple. It just, I don't know, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the blue one. Although this is very pretty as well. This is a little bit more subdued. I don't know, what do you think? Do you like the purple or do you like the blue? Let's try and just focus camera. What do you think? let me know, leave me a comment. I might do a poll, see what people think. Not sure if the colors are showing up exactly the way they are in real life on camera. But yes, that's it. If you stuck to the end, well done. Well done. It actually took me all day to work on that. So yeah, it is currently midnight-ish. Yes, half 12. Alright, so I'm going to go to bed. I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, I'm going to do a poll to see which one people like. But leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my video. And I will see you again for, yes, if you did enjoy this and if you want to make more, this is what I'm going to be working with on Wednesday to make a top which could potentially turn into a dress. So yeah, look, once you get used to it, it's actually really easy. Like, it's kind of mindless. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.